Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Let's tackle about the first highlights you can see on the chapter 3. This is the research design and methodology. The chapter presents the research design and various research methodologies employed by the researcher in conducting the study. This includes the respondent sampling techniques, instrument use, construction and validation of the instruments, administration and retrieval of the instruments, and statistic tool use. What is research design? Research design refers to overall strategy that a researcher chose to integrate the different components of the study in a coherent and logical way, thereby ensuring that would effectively address the research problem. It constitutes the blueprint for the collection, measurement, and analysis of data. This study employed the descriptive comparative approach to determine the level of management readiness of teacher aspirants for national qualifying examination for school heads. The preparations that respondents undergo before taking the national qualifying examination for school heads and what career progression plan may be proposed based on the findings of study. Descriptive research was used to obtain information concerning the current status of the phenomena and to describe what exists with respect to variables or conditions in a situation. On the other hand, a correlational research design was used to assess the relationship in the level of managerial readiness of teacher aspirants when grouped according to profile. Correlation design was quantitative research in which investigators measures the degree of relation between two or more variables using the statistical procedure of correlation analysis. This degree of association, expressed as a number, indicates whether the two variables were related or whether one can predict another. That's it. Now, let's move on to the next one. Miss Deita?
Very well said, Ms. Brown. Let's proceed to the respondents and sample of the study. The respondents of the study considered by the researcher were from the National Capital Region, particularly from the division of Marikina City, Pasig City, San Juan City, Parañaque City, and Las Piñas City, who were qualified to take the National Qualifying Examination for Heads, or NQESH. The said respondents were 100 master teachers, 120 teachers 3, and 80 head teachers. The said respondents were gathered from 5 divisions in the National Capital Region, to which for each division, 2 large schools were considered. And here is the table. Teacher respondents for the National Qualifying Examination for school heads and the randomly selected school division of the DepEd National Capital Region. For school division, we have here Marikina City, sample schools 2, and the master teacher respondents is 20, and the teacher 3 respondents is 24, and the head teacher's respondents is 16, and the sample population is 60. In the Pasig City, sample population is 2, and the master teacher respondents is 20, teacher 3 respondents is 24, head teacher respondents is 16, and the sample population is 60. How about the San Juan City? The sample school is 2, and the master teacher respondents is 20, and the teacher 3 respondents is 24, and the head teacher respondents is 16, and the sample population is 16. Parañaque City, sample schools 2, master teacher respondents is 20, and teacher 3 respondents is 24, and the head teacher respondents 16, and the sample population is 60. How about the Las Piñas City? Sample schools 2, master teacher respondents 20, teacher 3 respondents 24, head teachers respondents 16, and the sample population 60. As shown in Table 1, 5 schools division in the National Capital Region with 10 randomly selected sample schools were considered in the study. For every divisions, 2 participating large schools were considered, consisting each school for 10 master teacher respondents, 12. Teacher 3 respondents and 8 head teachers respondents with total of 120, and teacher 3 and 80 head teacher respondents were included in the study. These are the respondents and the sample study that was being explained in the chapter. The next one will be explained by Mr. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Ms. Diita. So now let's proceed to sampling technique. Sampling technique. In consideration of the total number of the respondents considered for every division, the researcher opted to select teachers who met the criterion and were qualified to take the National Qualifying Examination for School Heads (NQESH) and were considered the teacher respondents. In this study, purposive sampling technique was employed by we researcher. Purposive sampling was also referred to as an non-probability sampling. It was called this due to the researcher applying their own criteria when defining their sample. So in layman terms, the researcher selects their own individuals as part of their study. For a more academic definition, Ritchie et al. 2003, adapted from the Academic Triangle 2015, defines this sampling approach as a strategy where members of a sample were chosen with the purpose to represent a location or type in relation to the criterion. In this study, the researcher already knew who the respondents would be. These were the teachers who were qualified to take the NQESH. Specifically, they are the master teachers, teacher 3, and the teacher heads. The researchers simply selected 2 large schools in each division and humbly asked the assistance of the principals in identifying who the master teachers, head teachers, and teachers 3. Thank you. Ms. Pipiro, kindly explain the next one.
Now, this is the research instrument. The study used a researcher-made questionnaire checklist as means of data gathering and has 3 parts. For part 1, the profile of 3 groups of respondents, where gender, age, health, length of service, present position, educational qualification, previous designation, IPCRF, performance, and the training attendance. On the other hand, Part 2 of the contains indicators adopted from the DepEd number 32S of 2010 entitled National Adoption and Implementation of the National Competency-Based Student for School Heads to assess the level of managerial readiness of teachers aspirants based on the 7 domains of NCBSSH. In terms of school leadership, creating students, centered learning climate, human source, management and professional development, parent involvement, and interpersonal effective. Moreover, Part 3 of the questionnaire determines the preparation respondents undergo before taking. In addition, informal interview was conducted to gather in-depth understanding of particular context or setting as to the level of the respondents' awareness on the managerial readiness of teachers aspirants to be school heads. The data gathered in the actual interview were arranged in accordance to the manner of presentation. Interviewees were selected master teachers, school heads, teacher 3, and school heads who recently passed the NQASH. Thank you. Now, Mrs. Tosio, I will give you the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Ipito. We will talk about the validation of the research instrument. Research instruments were considered good if it was validated in order to ensure the outcome of the study due to the relationship of the independent and dependent variable. In this view, the researcher opted to have the researcher-made questionnaire checklist be validated. In the conduct of the development and validation of the questionnaire, the researcher considered related research instrument as a reference in constructing the questionnaire checklist. Indicators considered in the questionnaire was adopted from DepEd Order Number S. 32S of 2010 entitled National Adoption and Implementation of the National Competency-Based Standard for School Heads. Once necessary information was gathered, the researcher wrote the first draft of the questionnaire and presented it to the dissertation advisor for his comments and suggestions. The comments and suggestions were considered in crafting the second draft of the questionnaire, which was presented to experts, graduate school professor of University of Caloocan City, for their suggestions and comments to further improve the instrument. The edited questionnaire was then submitted again to the dissertation advisor for his other suggestions and corrections. The final draft of the questionnaire was given to selected master teachers, Teacher 3, and head teachers from the Division of Caloocan City, particularly the Tala High School and Samaria Senior High School, for the reliability validity of the researcher-made questionnaire. All the necessary comments were considered. The research questionnaire checklist was then finalized and given to selected teacher respondents who met the criterion and were qualified to take the national qualifying examination for school heads. That's the validation of the research instrument. Thank you very much. And now for the last presenter, Ms. Leones. Leones.
Thank you very much, Sis Toso. And for our last part, the statistical treatment of data. The data gathered from questionnaires were tabulated, tallied, and analyzed using the following statistical tool. Percentage, used to describe the profile of 3 groups of respondents in terms of gender, age, length of service, present position, educational qualification, previous designation, IPCRF performance, and trainings attended. This answered problem number 1. Weighted mean, used to determine the level of managerial readiness of teacher aspirants based on 7 domains of NCBSSH as assessed by the 3 groups of respondents. The scale was 1 to 3 with 1 as the lowest, not prepared, and 3 the highest, much prepared. The tool utilized addressed problem number 2. Ordinal, used to distinguish the different preparations respondents undergo before taking the national qualifying examination for school head. This answered problem number 5. One-way analysis of variance. One-way ANOVA was the statistical test used to make a single, overall decision as to whether there was a significant difference present among the 3 sample means on a single set of scores. The test was used to determine the difference of the assessment of the 3 groups of respondents. The level of significance used was at 0.01 with k equals 3. This addressed problem number 3. Fusion or correlation. Determine the relationship between the level of managerial readiness of the teacher respondents on the 7 domains of NCBSSH and the respondent's profile to answer the extent to which values of the 2 variables are proportional to each other. However, the value of the correlation does not depend on the specific measurement units used. This answered problem number 4. That's all of the chapter 3. Thank you very much.